Yes. All right. We're live now. Or going live now. We're live now. What's going on, everybody? It's Matt, aka the Lumberjack Landlord, here with his good buddy Dion. While we have everybody taking their time to join, you guys see the title. We're talking about evictions again today because I'm in the thick of it, just like I thought I'd be with the rental apocalypse. And it's all good. It is what it is. So Dion, how's it going, my man?
It's going really good. There's a couple of things when it comes to evictions that I do very specifically to help avoid them.
Yes.
I have a smaller portfolio, so I wasn't able to be as decent a human being as you were. Right? You have the larger portfolio, so you were able to go when the emergency rental assistance program came out. I looked at it and said, I only have 16 units, and the trajectory of this will be like in concrete. It will be like this. Somebody comes in who needs a place to stay, so you provide a place to stay. I could have provided a place to, I could have been a great human being and done what you did. I'm not, because I had a small portfolio, because the person would live there for 6 months, a year, 14 months, however long the program lasted, for free.
Yeah.
They're not going to plan that eventually this is going to end and I'm going to have to pay my rent. So that the end of the program happens and you're almost at 100% issues with each person, whether they were evicted or not. You had an issue with each person that hit the end.
Did. Yep. Did.
So since you had at the time over 130 rental units, you took, I think, what was it, 16 or
yeah, about 10, right around 10%. Yeah.
And so 10%. And you said, okay, I'm going to literally put this at risk.
Yes.
To not only have the eviction, which has a financial impact, but the time and emotional impact of you have to now go to grown adults who probably have families and say, here's how money works. Right, you've been getting this covered for free. It's no longer covered for free.
Right.
I skipped that. That's one of the things I do. The other thing is I have conversations with tenants. A lot of times tenants will say, hey, I've got this life issue going on and I need to pay my rent late. Is it okay if I do? And one of the reasons why they sought out someone like you or me is that we self-manage.
Right.
We don't have a property manager in place that literally just goes, no, this is a business. It runs like this. Here's the late fees. Here's everything. So they think, since we're, soft-hearted humans, right? Because we're polite when we're talking to them.
Sure.
That we're the first one, because they're not going to call AT&T or Verizon and say, hey, I can't pay my cell phone bill this month. Can you guys just kind of carry it out, maybe drag it out, or the utilities or the car payment? But rent, they assume maybe I can get this pushed off. So I always go, we have a lease. We have a contractual agreement that it is perfectly okay for you to pay your rent late.
Yeah.
There's going to be late fees. And as a favor, I'm going to file for eviction as soon as it's late because it's going to help you. There are rental assistant programs out there that you might not qualify for until you've been served. So first is, yeah, you can pay it late. You're going to be paying late fees. It's what's in the contract. Second, I'm going to serve eviction because that helps you. And then third, I say, because most renters haven't looked at the math of time. An average renter has about, on average, 4 weeks a month to save and collect and get the rent together for the next month. If we allow a person to pay their rent a week late this month, their brain says, I have a whole extra week to get the money. We need to take them to the next step and say, what does this do for next month? It reduces the 4 weeks that you would have down to 3 weeks to come up with an entire month's rent. So it's absolutely setting you up for failure. So here's the process for you. First, you're going to be paying late fees, so it's going to be more expensive. Second, I'm going to serve you with eviction papers because you are going to want those. And third, it's going to shorten the amount of time for the next month. So if after hearing all of that, you would like to pay your rent late, that's the agreement we have. And I have yet in a decade to have one late or missing rent payment.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, so I think that, yeah, we have a lot of those same conversations. I think at the end of the day, people chose to be evicted. That's right, everybody. I said they chose to be evicted because that was the choice they made. So if you don't believe me that they made the choice, let me give you the facts. They were served 7 weeks ago with a demand for rent notice to quit because they had not paid in 5 weeks. We did a video on this. I made a mistake. I said, let me help you out. You've always been a good tenant. I know that you'll catch up. Then they had a repair phone call. That repair call, we got over there. We fixed it. And my repairman said, so real quick, it's kind of like a shopping bomb went off in there. And I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, I mean, new PS5, new 75-inch screen TV, both cars they had, both had new temp tags on them, 60-day temp tags. And I was like, they went shopping with my rent money. So anywho,
your tenant got a chance to tell you how money works.
I got a chance to prove to him he was wrong. So at the end of the day, they chose to buy all of those things. PS5, 75-inch flat panel TV, and 2 Barca Lounger chairs that looked pretty nice. And then 2 newer cars, all way newer than I drive. Newer than my wife's car or either of my trucks that I use for landlording. Go ahead, Dion.
I just wanted to take a really quick second to say happy birthday to Beth Traverso, because she turned 29 again today. And congratulations on doing that.
Not again.
That's how it all works.
Yeah, but it's not again. It's 29, period.
It's 29, just
29, period. Yeah. I would know she was older. The only reason I know she's slightly older than 29 is because she's got older kids. It's the only reason. But yeah, like in this eviction thing, it's been downright hilarious because here was the response at the lockout. We've reached out to you a number of times to try to pay you. What's that look like? What does you trying to pay me look like? You have my Venmo, you have my PayPal, you have my address, you have a link in the portal. These are all viable options, and you've paid through almost all those options in the past. So I don't know how hard you tried to pay me. Number one. Number two is he then says, well, don't we get a court date? Yeah, that passed twice. You had 2 chances at a court date. You didn't get one because you wouldn't fill out the paperwork. Give me an ever-loving break. Then he's like, he literally within 2 hours of getting the door locks changed, sends me a text. I can pay you all of the rent in full. Can we move back in?
How many languages did you say no in?
Only 3.
Only 3. That's what I thought.
Only 3. No, and yet.
Exactly. Nice.
That was it. No, you can't move back in, you dolt. I evicted you. You didn't pay, and now you want to pay because it's going to be inconvenient for you to move. You know what's going to be really inconvenient? When you actually look and see that I was letting you skate on $800 a month worth of rent. I told you that a rent raise was coming. It's unbelievable to me that somehow out of all of this, landlords are the assholes.
I am really looking forward to the next article coming out on Business Insider that you have collaborated on.
Yes.
I think so. For anybody watching this, you might notice a trend going forward in the next couple of months. For the last couple of years, there have been several. If you just Google Matt Hawkins Business Insider or Dion McNeely Business Insider, there's somewhere between 5 and 10 articles that we've both kind of contributed to.
Yes.
And there are some people that go, wow, thanks for the inspiration. It's really cool that a 9th grade dropout and an ugly person could both achieve financial freedom, right? So they're like, you don't have to be super special to do this. There's a few of those. But then there's a lot of people who go, landlords suck. It's horrible. I saw it in a real estate group this morning where somebody was talking about depreciation. It's a real estate agent group, right? So I'm in there to kind of figure out how agents think. Sure. And somebody says, they explain depreciation. My properties went up in value. I get to tell the government that they're older, so I get to write off the gains. Agents attacked them saying how to be a horrible person by using the tax code to your benefit, like the way it's supposed to be. So the hate that comes out on landlords from these articles, for a bit, I would go in and, not in the convincing business, but try to say, okay, sure, that's your opinion, but here's why I do it. Here's what I do. We're going to support, dig the heels in and go, yeah, some landlords are jerks. And here's how we're going to be jerks, specifically to you. So those are going to be entertaining comment threads.
Yeah. At the end of the day, if I'm going to be accused of it constantly, okay, you win, I give in. I'm going to start being a jerk to all the do-nothingers on Facebook, to all the people that didn't get past the first 2 sentences, that couldn't find a good friend to read it to them. At the end of the day, the numbers are what the numbers are, and the life is what life is. You got to pay. There's no free lunches. I never got a free lunch. Other people don't get free lunches. You don't get one either. And at the end of the day, he chose 2 new cars, newer than either of the cars that I have. He chose a new 75-inch TV. I don't have that. And he chose a PS5, which I also do not have. So I hope he enjoys all of those amazing toys in the apartment that you will have extreme trouble finding with an eviction on his record, because he earned every bit of it. And we work with tenants all the time, but if we've gotten to a point where I'm locking that door, I bent over backwards for you. I gave you chance after chance after chance, and I gave you too many chances, and you didn't even deserve those. So I'm actually really excited because that lockout's done. He's going to come pick up his stuff. And, and the best part is he was paying $12.95. And I kept on telling him, hey, listen, that's way below market. You need to be looking at what the market is. You need to be looking at these other units. Here's a couple of examples. I didn't want to extend his rent because I knew he couldn't afford it. I gave him as many cues and signals as I could to give him as much leeway time as I could. He still then decided just to not pay. And then he wants to pay it all just so he can stay. I really want to stay. I really don't want you to stay. Since I own it, I guess my decision stands. So at the end of the day, he's created a scenario by which I, the landlord, look like an asshole. And I'm just not. If he doesn't like it, too bad. Pay your bills, dude. Pay your bills. Your cell phone company won't let you go that long. Your car payment certainly won't let you go that long. Your car insurance won't let you go. Why is this not just another bill? It's just another bill. I'm not special. I'm just the one who gives you the bill for where you live and sleep and make food. So yeah, at the end of the day, I get it. People want to think that landlords are trolls and horrible and awful. I trust me. I don't listen to the people that are yelling from the parking lot. Don't care. You're not in the game. It doesn't bother me. But I think everybody should know that, as I said in the Rental Apocalypse video series, it was back about 4 or 5 months ago. This is exactly what I knew was coming. I saw the writing on the wall. I saw everything coming apart. I saw all these programs immediately shut down. And a lot of people were like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do now? The reason that I can smile about locking somebody out is because I know that I did everything I could, even more than they were willing to keep them there. Did everything I could to keep them there. And they made the choice to choose something else other than paying for rent. So, and the reason why is a lot of people would say, well, why wouldn't you just take his money and let him move back in? No way. Because he's done it once. He delayed it for 7 weeks. I'm not going to pay for the posting fees. I'm not going to take the time. I'm not going to take the hassle. I'm going to take the opportunity to say, what people don't understand is that in business, which is what this is, he can look at it and he can say, he should have taken my $1,300 a month. Why? It's going to rent for $2,000 or $2,100 as soon as I clean it up and you're gone. You put me in a position where my only option was a lot better than you. I mean, Dion, tell me where I'm wrong.
No, let's say that he had been evicted from someone else's property and wanted to move into yours. So he has an eviction from right now. Does he qualify?
No.
Okay, so based on that, you would be setting yourself up for a discrimination case because somebody who isn't the same gender as him, somebody who isn't the same photo negative color of him is going to be able to go, he went in with an eviction and you told me no because of my eviction, so I'm suing you. Right? You have to have standardized criteria. If they don't qualify based on what they did with you, they wouldn't qualify if they did it with someone else.
Right.
It's no different because it was you. It's not like you could say, oh, you only went through an eviction with me, so that doesn't count. So absolutely not. No. Well,
and here's the crazy thing. So I'd talked to other landlords and I was like, have you ever let anybody, I was curious. They said, what are your thoughts? I said, my answer is no, but I'm just curious. Do other landlords actually do that? Do other landlords set themselves up to re-evict somebody? And one of them had an absolutely brilliant strategy. I'm not quite sure how I feel about it, in all honesty. I mean, I guess, But he has a brilliant strategy that actually says he will let you back in if you pay all of the fees and the back rent. He will let you back in, but your rent is due on the 1st. And if it's not paid on the 1st of the following month, he gets an immediate writ of possession. You can make that and bake that into an agreement. I thought that was absolutely brilliant, because it was like, at the end of the day, he's still giving them the chance to move back in. They just have to come up with that next month's rent too. Like, and not early, only on the 1st.
There's a bit of a difference if you have something recorded with the courts, kind of like you have a debt through your lease contract. That kind of counts. You go to courts and get an assignment. Now you can do wage garnishment, sell it to collections, all that kind of stuff. And then Paul asked a really quick question here. Are there deposit limits in your area? And my area, it can't be more than your month's rent. Most areas I've heard it's something similar to that, or a percentage of that. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Same here.
Right.
Yeah. It can't be more than that. KS had asked, did you have to put his property in a storage locker and hire movers? Absolutely not. New Hampshire, live free or die. You get 7 days to get your stuff. Anything after 7 days is abandoned property. We tell people that
has that requirement. You have to store it. I don't know.
So we store it in the unit and let them get access to it. They have to ask at a reasonable time. So that can be business hours. So that can be 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. during the week. We're going to make an exception for him on Saturday, and we'll have somebody there to unlock it so he can unload on Saturday. We don't want to cost the guy a day of work. So he will come Saturday and he'll be told, hey, 5 o'clock tonight, this gets locked up, whether you're done or not. So that's up to you. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, we don't have to hire movers. Everything stays in place for 7 days. The interesting thing is you really do, there's a bunch of pieces to this, but that stays there for 7 days. You have to give them reasonable access. You can't just leave the unit unlocked, because if all their stuff gets stolen, now you're at fault. So we have to literally open it, let them in, lock it when they leave. And yeah, at the end of the day for us, he's going to have all of his stuff out. We'll do some light rehab in the unit, because this is the first time this unit's been vacant since I bought the building. And the people that will buy this, and this really falls into the binder strategy, the people that get this brand new unit that will be completely redone, new floors, new doors, beautiful new paint, updating the kitchen. When they go through all of this, updating the bathroom, when they go through this unit, it will be absolutely beautiful. And the crazy thing, Dion, they'll be thrilled to be paying $2,100 a month. They'll be ecstatic. And meanwhile, he would have thought I was ripping him off.
I had to do a video about 6 months ago because, I want to be consistent. And so a lot of my investing strategy is how to limit tenant turnover, how to, run a sustainable business, how to diversify your tenants, diversify your location. So I have this kind of mantra on, here's how I did it.
Yeah.
But I did a video saying, sometimes the best thing in the world is tenant turnover. Yeah. You have a rent spike like we did in 2021, 2022. And I was getting the binder strategy. My lowest increase was 20%. My highest was 28%. But if I have a tenant move out, it's a 40% increase with a super easy. I went from, the heck was it, 1460 to 20, like 2000 something. So it's not 2100% of there. So 14 to that, whatever that is. And with a line of people.
50%. Yeah.
Yeah. So that didn't suck.
No, we're going from $1,295. We're going from $1,295 to $2,100.
Yeah, so almost 100% rent increase.
Yeah,
because you had tenant turnover. Now we weren't going to do 100% rent increase with tenant in place.
No, of course not. No,
right. So
nope.
And that's where I kind of went against my own. For 10 years, here's what worked: stability, limit tenant turnover, incremental rent increases, binder strategy when there's a black swan like 2021. But sometimes tenant turnover is the best option.
It really is, especially when your hand's getting forced to I bet you want to evict me. I wouldn't put too many chips on that.
Exactly. I'm guessing you're a lot like me with somebody hits you with an ultimatum and you're easy decision. Done. Yeah. I don't even have to think of what the options were. Yeah. What's the one that eliminates you? Okay, that's
Exactly. Well, let me think about that. You're right. I should never do that, but I'm going to go against your advice and I'm going to do that exactly. Because I'm an infant. Listen, at the end of the day, I worked hard. All he had to do, we've had other tenants that we've posted eviction paperwork and they've cleaned it up. They've taken care of it. They took care of it. Period. End of story. We had somebody else, the famous I'm waiting for my tax return. They got their tax return in. It was $6,000 and they paid $1,000 towards their back rent. 1,000. And so I literally posted that day. I said, that's not what we agreed to. I posted that day and I said, your $1,000 payment does not impact the status of this eviction. We are proceeding. Period. End of story. Give me some more of that tax return. Listen, I carried you and now it's your turn to pay up. And if you don't, then it's just that simple. You're gone. Like, this isn't the Salvation Army of rentals.
There's a lot of people that have that issue with when they're going through an eviction, somebody makes a partial payment. And so you have to know your local laws. Where I'm at, on the 2 counties that I'm in, as long as it's put into a holding account, which can be your Venmo, your PayPal, your anything, or a saving account that is not directly tied to the expenses of your business. This is the verbiage from the attorney.
Mm-hmm.
That is not a partial payment of rent. As a partial payment towards the amount owed in the eviction doesn't affect, but you have to communicate through email, which is admissible in court, saying
Yes.
your money is in a holding account. So you can continue to collect rents with Venmo, PayPal, Apple Pay, Cash App, whatever you want. But if you are going through an eviction, don't commingle the funds, put it clearly with an electronic paper trail of where the money is, how it's being held until the eviction is resolved.
Yep. I literally just send them an email back saying, please send me your email with any payment. And they send the email and they get an email right back. Please note that while we appreciate your payment, this does not impact the status of your eviction. Period. End of story. Invest Wealth, Matt, who do you have go open the door for tenants to pick up their stuff? Could be any of us. Could be me. Could be Mrs. Lumberjack. Could be one of our maintenance guys. Could be any one of 3 or 4 people. Because what we do is we open it for the day and then we let them know we're going to be back at this time. And no matter what, we have to lock up. So I can't wait around. No matter what happens at 5 o'clock, it's getting locked again. So we do that. Paul Jensen.
Most places have it to where a police officer can go.
Mm-hmm.
And monitor that if there's been a report of any kind of violence or incident like that. So
what we do is we would, in that particular case, and I'm learning through this process, my understanding is that you can actually have someone that you're paying to monitor the situation because most cops won't stick around.
Well, right. So it's a courtesy, not like there's a law, like, you know,
correct.
During a sheriff eviction, the cops show up, give you 5 minutes to get what you can carry out, and then they lock the door and you leave or you're trespassing. So that's an actual thing. But on the return to get your stuff, because when I was an officer in the town, I think in 8 years, probably 3, maybe 4 times, it'd be this courtesy. So you don't call 911, you call the non-emergency number and you say,
yes,
I have a tenant picking up their stuff. Can you have an officer? And you basically, an officer just goes, hangs out for 10 minutes. I have a presence here. I'm going to make sure nothing's going bad.
Mm-hmm.
And then once it's started and you see that there's nothing to de-escalate, right, then the officer's usually gone.
Yes, that's true. They leave very quickly. That's true. And expected. But sometimes we've actually had to pay to have one of our maintenance guys literally sit there. Sometimes we've had to pay for that because we were that concerned. Didn't want to give them the whole day. So we ended up having to pay. And that was something that we told them. We said, listen, if there's going to have to be somebody here sitting here babysitting you all day long, we're going to charge you for that. Like, that's not something that we want to do, but you've proven that we have to because you've threatened something about the unit. So now we have to watch you. And now it's a credible threat. And we treat all threats as credible. You know, in today's world, you have to. Paul Jensen, have you ever raised the rent for someone so that you could get a larger deposit? Never. Mm-mm.
So I haven't done it specifically for that, but I have listed a property and then had basically a rent bidding war.
Yes.
And my deposit is usually kind of based on the payment. It's not the same. I make very certain that they're not the same so that the tenant can't confuse my deposit with a last month's payment, because I don't want my tenants thinking they have a free month as long as they move. I don't want to motivate them to move. So I usually do like 80 or 90%. So I've had a couple times where the rent bidding war went in, and then whatever we settled on, then I was like, okay, with that rent, this is the new deposit. So it had changed, but it wasn't to get a higher deposit. It was because the rent kept going up. So the deposit did too.
Yeah, we certainly saw that. I think, in all honesty, Dion, I think we're in for that this spring. We have seasons to our rentals. You know, we don't see really any rentals kind of October, November, December, January, February, March. We don't really see much of anything unless it's somebody that newly got their voucher from housing and they're now looking. Those are the only new influx of people that we see, really. There's not a whole lot else. And there's evidence of that by the fact that 90+% of the people that apply for my units are Section 8 or housing. So whether state or local.
And one of the weird aspects of math when it comes to real estate is we've talked several times about the hidden cost of property management. You know, most people say it's only 10%. Well, it's 10% of gross, which ends up being about 50% of net, right? So they're making as much, if not more, usually on your property that you are, right? So when we do something like have a tenant turnover and you have we'll say 50% rent increase, not 100%. Sure. That's 50% of gross. Right. You end up having about a 400%
correct
cash flow increase. Like,
yes.
I'm trying to think what's a more professional way of saying this really doesn't suck. Like you should own rentals over time and all of these benefits compound. Compound interest is great, but compounding effects is awesome too.
Yeah, agreed. Bajan Sonic, has there been a period where a unit hasn't had tenants for months aside from renovations? No.
Nope. My longest tenant empty between one tenant and the other was 4 days, and trying to get everything done in those 4 days.
Yeah.
And I brought beer, pizza, whatever to the handyman and the guy and the contractors that were there. The
Please
roofer
don't leave.
guy,
Please
the
don't
roofer guy
leave.
said, "You brought us a case of beer. You know, I make like 160,000. It's a roofer, not the guy that runs the company, but the guy that's doing the roofing." Yeah. And I was like, "Well, you don't want beer?" He's like, "No, I want the beer." It's right. But he was like, you know, it's just because I wanted to get it all done in time. No, I've never had it. So here's can I?
Good. No, yeah, go ahead.
2-minute answer.
No, please.
So Bajan, this is a great question because when we're a new investor, here's the fear, right? And this fear will shift. The fear doesn't go away. It changes. The initial fear is two things. First, what if I can't find a tenant?
Right.
Like, how many months is it going to sit empty and I'm going to have to carry the mortgage? That is a totally rational fear that a newer investor has. Sure. This other fear is, what if a tenant trashes my property?
Sure.
That one never goes away. It's mitigated by having good reserves and, you know, sticking to your leases and that kind of stuff. But the fear of, what if I have a tenant vacancy that's very long and how many months will it last, which is the way it starts, shifts to, once we have experience and we have a rental, we know that's never the case. The correct fear, the way that it changes is, how much might I have to lower the rent to get a tenant immediately?
Right.
So if the rent in an area is $2,000 and you have a nice shiny new thing and you list it for 24 because it's the new one on the market and it sits empty, it's not that you're going to go 6 months and all of a sudden somebody's going to rent it for 24. It's you overshot your wish list rent price, just like somebody trying to sell a house and you had your rent too high. So first we might offer concessions of, I want a month free or half a month free to get somebody to move in. If they don't, then you think, okay, I made a mistake on where I thought the rent was, and you lower it. This could be 2 weeks later. This could be 3 weeks later. So it's less than a month generally, and you start adjusting the rent until it nails a tenant. And sometimes bringing your rent in a little lower will give you a bigger pool of people to choose from so that you can find the best tenants. It's not months empty. It's amount of change.
Yes. Yeah. True story. Yeah. And I think we might have had a unit, but it was very specific. And it was also something we were going to rehab. It was also something that, again, it went vacant 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. Like, that's not gonna do anything. And it was a very unique unit. It was 5 bedrooms, 1.5 or 1.25 baths. So that's just a very rare unit. Most people would never need a 5 1.25. It's one of those things that when it rents and it rents for a long time. I think we've owned that building for 10 years. I've had 2 tenants there. So it rents for a really long time. But
yes, but it might be Bahan or however you say it.
Might be Bahan.
It could impact cash flow. But when you project your rents, right, we're projecting with the yield that we're looking for, where Matt talks very often about a rent box. We have a buy box. This is the footprint. This is the area. This is the criteria I'm looking for. But there's a rent box on. You can't just take a snapshot. You can't go to Rentometer and figure out what the rents are. You can't go to apartments.com, Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace and take a snapshot and go, that's what rents are. You have to watch it for a few weeks to see what rents quick, what gets listed, pulled off, relisted at higher because they undershot and had too much attention. Like, it takes a couple of weeks to learn what your rents are. But yes, lowering your rents can impact cash flow. That's why before we lower rents, we steal a page out of the large apartment complexes playbook. We do concessions before we do decreases. But it's possible that you were wishing for more than you thought you were going to get. So I had Dana, the CEO of Hemlane, on my channel. 18,500 rental units, which is now over 20,000, but that's how many she had at the time, and over 3,000 owners of her entire network. Not one person signed a renewing lease at a lower amount than the year before. So it's not that rents go down to find a tenant. It's when we list a property hoping to get a certain amount. So you want to increase the rent. That we can make a mistake, shoot for too much, miscalculate, and have to adjust down. It's not that rents went down. It's that we didn't get what we were wishing for.
Right. 100%. Mrs. Furley. Hello. Good to have you here. KS, when do you advertise you? Oh, sorry. I wanted to, let's see. Does deposit act or become rent? So it does. What we do in our state is that when they are finally out of the unit, we then go in, we assess. If you take my course, you know exactly how to assess a unit, properly document a unit to ensure that if you do end up in court, that you win. I win. I don't lose. And it's because of my process. So we go in, we document the unit. We then send the tenant a letter at their, we ask for a forwarding address. If they have not given us a forwarding address, we send it to the old address because that's the only option that we have to prove that we sent them a letter about their deposit. And then we list out all of the items that are being deducted. And if there's anything remaining, we write that check. If there's a bill, then we give them that bill, and then ask them to make contact with us to make payment arrangements.
So I don't want to take any wind out of your sails.
Go for it.
You said you win when you go to court.
Yep.
And for the average person watching that might not think that they have your skill set, that they might not be as successful in court.
Yeah.
That's not how it works.
Exactly.
Here's why landlords almost always win, and tenants don't.
Mm-hmm.
Because winning for the tenant is living for free, moving out and not owing back, not having an eviction on your record, like all of the things that aren't in the contract. The tenant is trying to break a contract. So they win when the courts say the contract is invalid or there was negligence on the part of the owner. The landlord wins when the courts look at a written agreement between two adults and says, we're going to make that stand. So the landlord isn't winning more than what was in the contract. Isn't winning more than what was expected or reasonable. We're just getting what was written. The tenant is trying to get better than what was written. So even if you don't have the skill set to go and sit in court and be, mad, your attorney has the skill set to go and sit in court and go, here's a contract. We held our end of the bargain. Mm-hmm. Here's where the tenant fell short. That's why if you look at most eviction issues, it's usually in the decision isn't for the landlord, it's for the contract. So You're right. When we go to court, we win because we're not asking for, like, they said they'd pay $2,000 a month in rent, but we really want $3,000, right? The tenant is saying, we said we'd pay $2,000, but we really want to pay $1,000 and expecting to win. Right. We're just saying it says $2,000, we want $2,000.
Right. And fees and penalties. But then there's the other stuff too, that also becomes, they try to negotiate it. I didn't want to charge you for the 4 holes that were in the wall. If you had repaired them, done a decent job, and repainted the wall, I'd have been thrilled. I didn't want to keep that party deposit. I didn't want to waste my time with 2 or 3 different contractors, then I literally try and shop and still get the best price. I'm not just like, hey, ABC Beverly Hills paint and finish. No. I get whoever is available to do the job soonest that can do a quality job. I'm actually still shopping for price because if there's a chance that I'm not going to get paid, guess what? I still want to get the best price I can. So I still shop for my evicted tenants like I shop for myself, trying to make sure that they're getting a fair, equitable, and reasonable deal to repair what they damaged. Good morning, Kip. Also, Paul Jensen, I get a lot of applicants that just don't want to, Super Chat just moved it all for me. I get lots of applicants that just don't want to deal with the big property management firms. Do you also get that sort of clientele? No, and only really for one reason, because my assets differ from theirs on purpose. On purpose, I don't want to be big clientele, A class. I also don't want to be, hey, this thing was built 30 years ago and is starting to show its age and starting to fall apart, because a lot of those places, they'll use carpet because it's cheap. So yeah, kind of crazy. We just got 3 super chats, so we'll do each one after the other. Kip SOS, thanks so much. I'm glad I don't have any green beer here, but yeah, I don't have any green beer. But Dion's got that taken care of with clear beer.
Water.
Clear water.
Like
yeah.
Mountain Dew with vodka in it.
Exactly. Robert Fairley, hello, Matt. Thanks for distracting from work. Happy to do it, Robert. Sully, guys, I received a pic from my HVAC guy concerned that my tenants have an extra person living in the utility closet. Okay. There's a small bed, TV, etc. Should I post a letter? Call them, please help. Dion, I'll let you handle that one first, my man.
Okay, I think we might have different answers here.
We very well might.
So this is not financial advice or legal advice, because this is an entertainment channel on YouTube, and this is just my opinion.
Man, we don't do well for entertainment.
I am not a police officer currently. It is not my job to uphold the law. That person wants to commit fraud. It's not my job to report it. I wouldn't care. I don't care who's living there. That person gets caught. It's on them. The housing authority will take their voucher. The housing authority will probably tell them you owe the state X amount of dollars for how many years you live there. That is a tenant issue. A lot of landlords would say, oh yeah, I would definitely report it. If you were covering the utilities and the utilities spiked, maybe I'd care. If they put in a water bed or something that was going to destroy the floor, but a bed in there is not going to, is it safe? Right? Did they, in the picture, can you tell that, like, I don't know, how is the TV put in a closet or something? I think most landlords and most people on YouTube University are going to say, of course you report that, because they think they're in this public format where you have to be held to some really high ethical standard. And I'm like, it's really expensive to live. And if that person can have somebody there to share the rent, even though they have the state helping, yeah, they're committing fraud. It's not my business.
So she said HVAC
advice.
She said HVAC guy, not
so the HVAC guy sent the picture. So it's not right. So good on him.
Yep.
Here's something weird you might want to know. You own the property, so that's good, or her, whoever the HVAC guy. You said guy, so
she said guy. Yeah,
not my problem. This is not my circus. I'm just one of the clowns. I wouldn't report, but.
So Sully, I want to make sure that I'm giving you my opinion based on all the facts. One of the questions I would have is, are they in fact on a voucher? That is something that I want to know, only because then it's not even a conversation you have to have. It's a conversation housing can have. Number one. Number two, most importantly is, and we are going to differ. I'm going to differ from Dion on this because I don't want the liability. Oh, there goes his camera. Where'd you go, Dion? I don't want the liability. If I know, and I've been sent proof that somebody is potentially sleeping in a utility closet, it likely does not have a form of egress. If it's in a unit where that hot water heater or the heating system or cooling system is run on natural gas, they could die. So from my perspective, it's not so much about getting paid. Dion's gone green in support of St. Patty's Day. But so here's what I would tell you. It's not for me about getting paid. For me, it's much more about safety. I don't want to see that because it could be a huge safety issue. You could get a plume of, carbon monoxide, and that could kill somebody because it's odorless, it's tasteless. You could die. If there's a fire there, there's no forms of egress. There's a reason why it's a utility closet, not a bedroom, is because it doesn't have any forms of egress. So what I would make sure is, here's the downside. You were sent a picture. Like, never hire that HVAC guy again.
So, an official communication, but
right.
You make a great point on what is the utility closet.
Yeah.
Are there forms of egress? Is there a smoke detector?
Yeah.
I don't care about it has to be so many square feet to qualify as a bedroom. And I don't care about that. To have a closet.
Yeah.
I care about the safety aspects. Correct. Just like you. So yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I grew up in a utility closet, like next to the washer and dryer. So
Yeah. Yeah. My mom called mine a bedroom. I was like,
they called
prove
mine,
it.
it was a hallway, really.
Just because you can fit a bed in it doesn't make it a bedroom.
Right. But can you get in and out? And is there a smoke detector, carbon monoxide detector? Yeah, that kind of stuff. Safety, you absolutely are right there, especially now that you're made aware.
Yeah, you
And
gotta.
you can add those things. Go put a carbon monoxide detector in that room, and based on your layout, look at what the forms of egress are.
Yeah. So if they are on voucher, that's a really easy phone call to make to Section 8 or housing. If they aren't, I would send them an email saying, it's my understanding that there's somebody actually staying in the utility closet. I actually got a report of that. I need to understand exactly what's going on there, or I'll have to post papers. You have to be listen, at the end of the day, guess who's going to get sued if he gets stuck in there or she gets stuck in there and they die? Guess who's going to get sued? You.
Right.
And now the worst part is you're aware. You're aware. And that's the gotcha. Every single time, the first thing in court that they'll ask, were you aware? Aware of what? Aware that there was somebody sleeping in your utility closet where you have gas coming in and exhaust going out. It literally only takes an exhaust flap not opening properly, and that room's getting filled with carbon monoxide. So for me, that's what I would do. I would make sure to do that. Robert Farinelli, you are in luck, my friend. You are in luck, Robert Farinelli. I can answer your question. I'm going to get back to the other ones, but I'm going to answer your question, Robert Farinelli. Pike Industries, you're welcome. Pike Industries in New Hampshire. They're one of the country's largest rock blasting companies in the Granite State too, that actually will go blast stuff and then they'll turn it into 3/4 crushed gravel, stone dust. They'll turn it into all the different products. You look up Pike Industries, you call them directly. You tell them, I need a tractor trailer load or half of a tractor trailer load of gravel. You will likely pay a third that price that you were just quoted. Done. Lumberjack Landlord to the rescue.
Here's a cheat for you.
Yeah, please.
This might not work in all areas, but it works in some.
Okay.
Find out if there's a CDL school in the area that has dump truck training. One of the things that dump truck training students are often looking for is what are called live loads. You actually learn more when the truck has weight and you get to spread a load, deliver a load, dump over the reach, all of the things that it takes that you can't teach without something to deliver. Our school, for example, delivered with no cost. You pay for the materials, you call the place, you pay for, $230
a yard
per yard or whatever, right? Yeah. So it's not really high cost, and then the delivery's free because you have to do two things. You have to be willing to let the instructor take the time it takes to dump the load. So they're not going to come in like a construction dump truck that comes in and got 5 minutes to get it off and get to the next job. They're going to come in and take 30 minutes. They're going to explain how to check for overhead obstructions that you're going to get, find out where the septic system is so that you're not going to have an instructor doing the delivering. The student needs to have the explanation take longer than the delivery will, and save yourself a bunch of money. Not in every area, but in an area where there's a school that does dump truck training like ours did.
Love that. So two other points. One is, because it's gravel, you want to make sure that they're likely not going to drop it exactly where you want it. So you just try and get it as close as you can to that point. Second thing is you should have a tarp down of some sort. It's going to make cleanup 1,000 times easier. Number two. And number three, Pike being not only the blasting company, but the trucking company as well. They will likely bring it because they actually bring the crushers on site to make product on site. And then they get them filled and then they bring them somewhere. So it's a brilliantly run business. I buy 3/4 stone for about 13 to 14 bucks a yard. And if you go buy that anywhere else, it's going to cost you 27. And it's because for these guys, they want to cover the cost of their trucking. They really don't care about the material. They're just trying to get rid of the material. So we're actually helping them out. So Dion's ideas, my ideas, that's guaranteed to save you a fortune. And I want to know how much money it saves you because I think it crushes. Let's see. Brett Wickstrom, totally agree, Dion. If I'm getting paid, I don't care. Then Brett says, dead bodies don't pay rent either. Fair point, Lumberjack. Correct. Yeah. Again, it's safety, guys. It's just the safety thing. I personally don't care. Go ahead.
Well, I had a dead body paying rent for about a year and a half. There's never been in a video before, but I had a tenant who got busted for Social Security fraud because their parent had passed away.
Oh no.
But yeah, so
you've got that.
Dead bodies pay the rent. Don't be involved in how it happened, but yeah.
Yeah. KS put a lock on the door. So it's a great idea, but what your better option is, you really need. So here's the issue. If there's an emergency, they need to get in. It's a systems room, which means your HVAC is in there. Probably your hot water heater is in there. Probably your electrical panel is in there. You probably can't put a lock on that door for what it's worth.
Your tenants need access to things like the electric panel to kill power if there's an issue. We know an investor right now who has a handyman putting in a door.
Yes.
On their duplex where somebody put in a wall so that the other tenant can have access to the breaker room if needed.
What most people also don't know is that Section 8 housing requires that the tenant have access to their own panel. And so when we rehab a unit, we will actually run a longer drop. The drop is the big thick wire. It's about this thick. We'll actually run a longer drop to the panel and we'll put it in the unit. The reason that we do that is now we don't have to give basement access. Now we don't have to have them go outside the building to adjust or change anything. And with most apartments, they're typically 10 circuits, 10 circuits, meaning 10 circuit breakers. So if you're talking 10 or 12 circuits and you can put that in the unit and then label it well, likely it's a phone call and a couple of flips back and forth and you're back and live. And we actually had that happen last night. And we didn't even have to, literally got the text. We said, hey, do this, check this. They went and they checked it. They flipped the breaker. Boom. They shut it off, turned it back on. That was the reset that the system needed, back up and going. So I literally have gotten to the point where I can fix things from afar. That's a gift.
So here's some pet peeve that I don't know that I've talked about before either. So I have 16 rentals, purchased 16 places, each with their own electric panel. Right? All separated out. Not one of them, not one, had a clearly marked panel.
Oh.
How hard is it to go and buy a one-sided sticky piece of paper?
Yeah.
And literally take the 5 minutes when you buy it to, okay, that one does this, write it down. That one does this, because you're not going to know in 7 years when you have your first issue with electric at a place to be able to text your tenant from the beach and say, or your handyman and say, yeah, that's this issue you need to do. When you first close on a property, take a few minutes, redo everything in the electric panel, make it clear and with as much detail as you can, because it won't matter the first 6 months you're buying there. It's going to matter later after you're closing on a different property.
What's really funny is newer electric code. It's actually code that has to be properly labeled. And if it's not, it's a code violation.
Oh, none of mine were, not one.
Woo, woo, woo.
Exactly. I've replaced 2 after closing though.
Yeah. The key,
now those ones are, but
to your point though, what's really funny is this is again, just one of those things, right? You and I have worked with an inspector before that's just like, I'm having a particularly bad day. So violation. And it's like, you don't want to open yourself to that. So these are some of the little simple things that you can do. It's the same thing that we do when we add more shutoff valves to a house. Do I have to? No. Does it cost me a couple $100? Yeah. Does it save me thousands of dollars in potential damage every single time? Yep. Does it mean that I can isolate water to one specific unit while they have an issue and 3 other tenants are still happy? Yep. These are the little things that you can do to perform a whole lot better as an operator. So I would tell you, like Dion said, go get the sticky pad and literally go over there sometime when they're on vacation or when they're out for the day. You might miss a nap. You might miss an amazing war by Horde, in World of Warcraft. I think I got that right.
Yeah.
And when that happens and you've labeled it, now on any emergency that ever happens, you can literally get to the basement or have somebody run down to the basement and say, just shut the one off that says XYZ, dishwasher. Just shut that one off. and cut the power immediately, because that time is of the essence. And so often in particular scenarios where you need to trip a breaker or flip a breaker, often that can be an emergency scenario. So you want to make sure that it's well appointed and well marked. Suli, not on a voucher. Okay. So I wouldn't call housing, but I would, like I said, I would reach out to them via email. And if you don't get a response in, and you can tell them, if I don't get a response in 48 hours, I will be sending something back. But yeah, I would absolutely, you've been notified, you're doing exactly the right thing. It is absolutely a safety issue. And because you have been made aware that there is a potential safety issue, it's now your burden to make sure that it gets addressed and taken care of. Rob, nap canceled. Sorry, I had to be the one to tell you.
That was actually one of my most recent dawning realizations of being retired, is that I never sleep. I do have a nap that tends to be around 2 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock in the morning, somewhere in there. There's a nap, but it's not set on any kind of schedule.
Yes. Robert Fairley. So speaking for the electrical panel, what if my electrical panel for the upstairs unit is in a finished room in the basement for downstairs unit? Yeah. So that's completely allowed. But Section 8 says, housing says that tenant has to have access to that panel. Code is many times that's actually grandfathered in, that you can actually keep it in a separate space, but it's a different rule because housing updates their rules. And so there can be rules where the code enforcement for the city is one way, housing is another way. But if you want a housing tenant, that trumps code enforcement. So you can literally, usually what I find is housing updates their rules more often. To give you an example, typically every 2 years, sometimes 3 years, the there's an electrical committee in Washington. I know, big surprise. And basically they vote in the new code. When they vote in the new code, it's every 2 or 3 years. And then your city adopts that code and then manages to that code. What ends up happening is that you will find cities that say, we're not adopting that code. It's going to cost us a fortune to get trained. It's going to cost a fortune to implement. We're not going to update that code. We're going to actually stick with the old code for now. I've literally found places, 3 guesses, first 2 don't count, Dion. Where is there a place that hasn't updated their code in 15 years, their electrical code in 15 years? 3 guesses, first 2 don't count.
I would guess Las Vegas.
Close. Not that nice.
Okay. Pahrump? No. Gary, Indiana.
Yes.
Okay. Nice.
Gary, Indiana, bringing up the rear with the 2008 electrical code. I literally had to look it up because Mike had asked me a question. I was like, I don't know, let me check. So I look, and sure enough, electrical code 2008 in Gary, Indiana, which means you can do a panel there for probably about $250 because that doesn't require AFCI breakers. That doesn't require a lot of things that are required now. Now, the material cost of a panel is now about $2,000. That's the material cost of a panel now. When you look at all the AFCI breakers, GFCI breakers, when you look at all the, main lug shutoffs that you have to have. So I laughed because I told Mike, I was like, whatever electrical needs to happen there, it's going to be really cheap. Sully with another super chat. Thank you, Sully. I appreciate it. Sully, please feel free. Just ask a question. You don't have to give a super chat every time. There's a furnace. Okay. Water heater. Yep. Washer and dryer. Yep. There's also an egress window. Okay. I'll add the monoxide detector. Yep. Carbon monoxide. Yep. Smoke detector. Why was it bad that he alerted me about it? So great question. So first of all, you don't have to add 2 alarms. You can add 1. It can be a combination alarm. The only thing you're going to want to make sure is that it's hardwired. You want to make sure that it's hardwired, because if it's not hardwired, a battery can die and it's not going to work. And yeah, they make those new ones with the 10-year batteries, but still most code in most places is actually having a hardwire detector that actually communicates with the other ones on that either circuit or connects to them via Wi-Fi or signaling. However, So that's what I would do as far as the device is concerned. Why was it bad? He alerted you about it because he made it your responsibility.
So my opinion,
Yeah.
it's how he let you know.
Yes.
So electronic communications are admissible in court. And in some areas, it's only email. Some areas, it's text. If he had called you, so anytime you're going to point out something that's a gray area or a violation, you don't want it in record format.
Yes.
So I would be happy that, because my handyman, they know that part of their job is when they go to a unit to do anything, I kind of get a report. How many people are living there? How many cars were parked on the grass? Anything. I'm trying to think of other things that, anything else that could need fixed or whatever, but not with pictures, not in an email, not in a way where if it ever went to court, now you have to say, I was aware someone was living in that room and I didn't take any action, or I did take action. Like you said, I'm going to take the right action to do it. So it's not that that's bad. I want them to tell me, but I would prefer a phone call when it comes to something like that.
Absolutely. Phone call. Yep. And so that's all. That's the difference. Ninja Vanish 24/7. Sup, Ninja Vanish. Good to see you. Yeah, Rob, Gary. Yep, it's Gary. James Walsh. Matt, I have a rental listed for 32 days right now. Yep. Can you provide any insight on why your ads are elite? I'm getting a very low amount of leads compared to previous years. Well, James, they are elite. Dion saw it firsthand. Dion, don't give away the secrets.
Well, here's the best way to do this is why the course was so effective, right? So
yeah,
my friend listed their rental, same thing. She didn't do her rent box right. So if you're renting and you're listing and you're not getting a lot of hits, reevaluate your rent box. That was step one. Step two is, and I don't want to give away what's in Matt's course. I want people to understand the benefit to it. But
sure.
I've only had 4 tenant turnovers, right? So I'm making a course right now, the free one for the binder. Like this is how you take the binder strategy. It's going to be a course. It's going to have the spreadsheet, the seller finance letter, all for free. So people can always just get them. It's going to be like, it's $150, but if you do it now, it's free. And I'm going to keep it free as long as possible, right? The idea is, if I ever have a course on like owning rentals or whatever, it's not going to be how to deal with listing your properties. I would go with Matt's information because you have 137 units. And even with low tenant turnover, that's multiples of what I've done, right? So my friend lists her property and I go and help because I've had 4 tenant turnovers and I'm an owner. I want it to be thorough and specific. What is for rent? What is expected? And where is it located? So I list the property with the information. And it sits. She had a rent box wrong and it was listed with information. We took Matt, the information from the course, and we made the property attractive. So the difference between I provide information or I go, here's why this is the place for you, with about right around a dozen changes. I want to say that many changes to what I did. It had all the information. So it was a dozen things to look at, angles to look at this from, to put it out and go, rented.
Yep. Like
the next morning, there was a couple of applications. So not just, hey, can we get a viewing? I mean, applications filled out like this is the one they want. So yeah, I will say there's absolute validity in the course, but if you don't want to take the course and you want the idea, it's, as an owner, you're probably doing like I do. Here's the information. It's this many bedrooms. It's this far from the freeway. It's like, it's got a washer dryer. It's got a garage. It's in a good school district. That's what you want to know. And then there's the stuff that Matt put that I wouldn't have thought of, that if they're looking at it from the tenant's perspective, what are you looking for?
Yeah.
Right. We think they want information. They want to know which is the right place for them. And that's what you did.
Thank you.
Good enough?
That's great. No, sauce. I think so. So Dion did a phenomenal job explaining that without really giving anything away. Sell the sizzle, not the steak. So all of the templates that I use, I put in the course. So whether it's a tenant letter, whether it's a reprimand letter, whether it's we're evicting you letter, all of the documentation that I've ever used in my business, which I think is like 17 different pieces of documentation, everything I have there in the course. That said, on the rental side, Marina, if she's still here, she can speak to it. She actually did an awesome video for us, talking about how she got 1,000 views in a week but only one even sort of qualified person. The next week with my ad, she got 2,300 views and 8 strong on paper candidates and one that was just an absolute home run that she signed with. That in all likelihood, on paper, they're about the best that you're going to get. So the approach really is sell the sizzle, not the steak. There's a reason I spent 45 minutes in the course going through it. It's because it can't be done in a couple of minutes. It's how I structure the ad, all the things that I include. And so that's why it's in the course, is because I spent 45 minutes doing it. Now, once you have those particulars and all the information that I like to glean, then your ad becomes very repeatable. Every single time something comes available, it's boom, boom, boom. I save templates for all of my units. That way, when I go to post something, I can literally say, hey, we need to post that. Boom, we post it and we're done. So there's that. John Williams, great to see you too on Friday. I thought Dion would be waiting in certain queue this morning for Sanctuary, but I'm happy to stay a while and listen.
I was hoping that wouldn't come up. This is the
Why?
So I've clearly pointed out I'm a nerd, right? Like, no, this is a Dungeons and Dragons map. This is a Horde shirt. Like, there's a supernatural tattoo. Like,
oh no, we get it.
Find the nerdier nerd, right? It's not going to happen. Today, I paid the extra price because Diablo 4, this new game, it's the 4th version.
Okay, I gathered.
It comes out in June.
Okay.
But if you pay for the premium account, you get 4-day early access. So you'll get in 4 days earlier than everyone else. And this weekend, so today and the next 2 days, I'm not going to sleep because I'm going to have 3 days of playing Diablo 4, which is out now, but I'm here. And tomorrow I'm going to be at the Robin Hood Resort. And then I'm going to be in the Bigger Pockets boot camp office hour session with that. So like there's the level of dedication it takes to want to share information with people against the gaming nerd in me.
Oh, dude,
There's a reason why there's vodka Mountain Dew, because, you can't drink all day unless you start early.
Yeah, that's my version of cutting off a pinky. Well done, Dion. You're a giver. Well done. Sully, I just want to make sure we answer your questions, Sully. So if you have any others, don't super chat. Just put them in there. I'll answer them. Not a problem. Let's see. Robert Farinelli, last question that is bugging me for now. Just signed a lease with a new tenant who is very excited to move from a downtown to South Manchester. Very cool. Has a motorcycle he wants to store in one of my sheds. Recommendation for how you handle locks on shed. Each unit has their own lock. What I would do is I would rent him the shed for $1 because I wouldn't increase his rent, but I would rent him the shed for $1 and then I would put a digital keypad on there to make sure that he has access to it and that you have access to it. Just make sure you get some sort of a list of the things that you're not allowed to store in there. Like, you don't want to find out that he's got a tire collection in there after you're done. You want to make sure that he's not, to be lazy, that he's putting 2 5-gallon cans of gasoline in there to be lazy. It's those sorts of things. What the best bet usually is you look at what a dumpster company's throwout list is, where they say, we're going to charge you a bunch of extra money if you put this stuff in the dumpster. You can do it that way, or you can say it is only for storage of your motorcycle. The problem with that is that can slide a little bit, and you do want to give him some flexibility. But again, that's how you keep a new tenant that's paying market rent. That's how you keep them happy, is you do something special like that for them, and he probably will stick around for a pretty long time. But that's
make sure that you have a strong enough ramp for the motorcycle to get in and out without hurting somebody, that the door's wide enough. Yeah. I would find 5/8 at least minimum thickness plywood and add it to the flooring so that the tire doesn't go between the joists, because it's generally not house grade flooring in a shed. I did the same thing. I put a shed at my fourplex, and then the other tenants were like, what are you doing? And they said, I do the same thing for you for $100 a month. So now I have multiple sheds there. If you're securing a shed, I don't like to use master locks that have a loop.
Correct.
Wind a towel through, twist the towel, and snap the lock. I mean, it's that easy to get into a master lock. And I have a lock pick set. I put like the end of my videos, I taught some, this is how you pick a lock kind of things, right? Very easy to get one of the circular ones. Yeah. That, like for the back of a truck where you've got the two metal bars that come together. So it comes, so it can't be cut. And it's really hard to pick because the key has to turn while you wiggle the lock because it's such a hard mechanism to get it to turn. So all of my sheds have those perfectly round locks where the mechanism itself that locks is only about that wide. Much harder to get into. And I'm with Matt. You charge for the shed if they're going to store stuff in there. If it's already part of their lease, I don't know if I would change it, but I would make sure it's ready to support the weight of the bike.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, because you could be riding a 375 pound R1, or you could be driving a 800 pound dresser.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've got both of those. So yeah, I know what the weight difference is.
Really quick overshared side thing. Please. I gave it to my brother, but I had a Honda NT. That was my motorcycle. So it was my computer bike. Every time I come to work, most of the instructors have Harleys because truck drivers, right?
Sure.
They would take an extension cord from the building out and like tuck it into my seat like I was charging my bike. It's great.
It's nicer than the things I would do to it. So that kind of works out.
Yeah.
Jordan Harmon, where do you run background checks? Usually, so we'll use one of the third-party services, but Dion, I think you used apartments.com, right?
So you have some free options. You can use Zillow, apartments.com. I'm using Hemline now, so it's not free because I pay for the service, but has a bunch of other things. The idea is it's free for the owner on apartments.com and in Zillow, where you can list your properties. And it might be on some other platforms too. I'm just not familiar with them. I know that, like I would say Trulia, but that's owned by one of those. So that's the same platform. The tenant pays. When I used Cozy, it was $38. The tenant pays for a credit. They don't verify work history, but you get to put in the information and then an eviction report. And now at apartments.com, it was like $45. And my last one was listed on Hemline. I actually don't know what the charge was, but I'm pretty sure it was the same because it lists it on 30 different platforms. So it might depend on which one they found it on. So that's how I do the background stuff. What I recommend is some of those systems will verify work history. I don't like that because what they do is the tenant goes, I work for AT&T. Here's the phone number. Here's the name of my manager. Right. So that company will then call that number and verify with that name.
Right.
Who could be their cousin's, sister's, best friend's, roommate's uncle. Right. So
exactly
what I do is I want the work. Now I don't actually look at income. So it's a metric I don't check, but to check for the honesty of the tenant, because I want to catch them in a lie if I can, I'll take the information on their work from Hemline or apartments.com when I was using it, Google the company, call and ask to talk to HR, and then ask if that person works there. And so far, it's always worked out. But I don't want to use information because I've had a ton of acquaintances. I don't want to say friends, but people that have reached out and said, "Hey, you own rentals? Can I use you as a reference for a landlord?" I'm like, no, you can't do that. One, I know you, so you don't want them to hear what I would actually say about you. And two, no. So I know that there's tenants to do that. They could fake all kinds of things. They could fake pay stubs. They could fake tax returns. They can fake everything. But going through the act of putting a company on with their name and Googling it, and just you can figure out if they're being honest or not that way. So that's the way I do that.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that. And I used to check landlord references and I don't anymore. I don't, because I do the others. So yeah, we got by 3 or 4 of them. And it was just like, holy cow, like ridiculous. Bajan, I'm a new investor. Would you prefer me to look for a flip or a multifamily? Multifamily house hack. That's what, if I were in your shoes, I would do a multifamily house hack. And the reason why is if you're a new investor, a flip is not easy. A flip could take you out of the game, especially in a market like this. You are only ever a day or two away from rates being 5.5 or 8. And that is a major weight on what you're trying to do from a project perspective, managing. You can do it, but don't do it unless you've skilled up, unless you've taken courses on it, unless you know how to manage it, unless you know how to price materials, unless you know how to do a lot of things that you probably don't know how to do right now. We have a couple of people in my course that bought the course. They're going through the course, asking all their questions now. So they're skilling up before they go do something. That's the best way to do it because you're going to have the fewest surprises. But yeah, generally speaking, a flip is not a path I would want to go. I would do 4 units or less.
So let's
Yep.
step it back to I'm a new investor, right? So you're
Yep.
you're looking into real estate, and you can easily get shiny object syndrome. You're going to hear that,
Sure.
wow, you can rent an RV pad and you don't have to maintain a building. You can rent storage and you don't have tenants. You can flip wholesale or BRRRR, which is a very flipping and BRRRR is kind of an advanced strategy, but it sounds attractive. It's like, I don't have to have money. I can recycle my capital. I can, people will say, I'm going to flip houses to build the capital to buy rentals. And in the last 10 years, with an uptrending market with rates going down, it was actually pretty easy to make some huge mistakes, mess up your timeline, mess up your rehab. The time that it took, the market corrected so much or went up so much, it fixed your mistake. So you're going to hear people talking about flipping for the last 10 years like it was the easiest thing ever. Even if they didn't know what they were doing, they were successful. We're not in that market now. And to also go back to that step of you're a new investor, what's your end goal? Are you trying to create a job? Because that's flipping. It's episodical. You stop working, the money stops coming in.
Right.
Are you trying to create passive income? And then you said, so it's either flipping or multifamily. And then we need to do, like Ninja Vanish pointed out, multifamily can mean different things to some people. It could mean that you rent out by the room. There's multiple people living there, multiple families in one property. It could be a house with an ADU, duplex, triplex, or fourplex. And we usually separate residential, which is 4 units or less, with 5 units or more because of the lending structure. With 4 units or less, you can use owner-occupied lending, usually getting a better interest rate and a lower down payment. With 5 units or more, you're generally going to be into DSCR, commercial asset-based lending, where you don't have 30 always, you don't always, sometimes, but not always have fixed rate debt, 30 or 40 year mortgages, which is the benefit to the 4 or less. So if we say multifamily house hack, Matt, means 4 units or less, probably a single family with an ADU. So, 2 houses on one property, or a duplex to start. Some people would start with a 4-plex if you're going to go FHA, if you can find it, and just jump in and have 3 tenants. It's the best strategy if you're using FHA, because Matt talks about having FHA has some limitations on what you can buy, but they'll let you work towards a single family or into a larger single family. So the strategy is to go 4, 3, 2, 1, and then better school district, safer neighborhood, more bedrooms, other things you can use to use that loan over again. I used conventional, went duplex, and then later got a 4-plex, and they don't ask those kind of questions. So it depends on what you can save the down payment for. If you go with a house hack, you have FHA options, which is the best one for triplex and 4-plex because your down payment is only 3.5%. If you're a new investor and you don't own a house, conventional is usually best for a house or a duplex, because with a house, it's only going to be 3% down. Mortgage insurance goes away once you have enough equity without having to refinance. It's a little easier to get sellers to accept it because FHA has a couple more hoops to jump through. At least that's the thought. So conventional with house with an ADU, or a house with like a built out basement that's an apartment, or a split level that's divided, all these different ways to do this. When you buy your investment and intend to live there, instead of having to have 20 or 25% down and paying a higher interest rate because it's an investment, you get what's called owner occupied lending. That's why Matt said house hack. So you're going to lower or reduce your housing costs. You're going to get better lending options, and you get into real estate with a repeatable strategy. When you buy a house with an owner occupied loan, the requirement is that you intend to live there for about a year. Some lenders will be 10 months, most are 12, but it's about a year. So if you saved every 2 years and bought a new place that you moved into, a new duplex, in 10 years, you'd have 5 duplexes cash flowing and probably never have to work again in your life.
In 13 years, you could have 9. Worked out really well. That's what I did. That's why I say it. 13 years.
Yeah, so I had 10, at 8 years, I had 7 properties.
Nice.
I still have 7 properties. I haven't bought any more, but it's 16 units, and it doesn't take it. You can go Matt's route. It's a genius strategy. Grow a massive portfolio. You have a generational wealth machine that's going to generate more wealth. I wanted freedom, and I wasn't working to provide my kids with anything, because what have they ever done for me? I wanted the best thing I could do for my kids is to not become a financial burden to them when I'm too old to work. So I was working towards financial freedom, not generational wealth. I actually don't want my kids to inherit much. I think that ruins people. But doing that house hacking thing, getting started in real estate and just building a portfolio, and then you get to choose. Do you recycle capital and grow a massive portfolio like Matt, or do you recycle cash flow like me, have a smaller portfolio and freedom?
Absolutely. 100%. And that's the best part about this is it's like, to Dion's point, I wanted a very large portfolio because I wanted to throw off more cash than I'll ever spend. I just spend more than Dion.
Yeah.
So,
well, let's see when you start doing that.
Yeah.
Let's see. I know you want to, and you're
three kids, man. 3 kids, 5 and under.
3 kids too.
Yeah, they all have jobs, and it's
and
illegal.
You think the problems go away when they turn 18. Good luck with that.
That's awesome. All right, we'll do some rapid fire real quick. Tiffany White, howdy. Good to have you here, Tiffany. Paul Jensen, thanks for all the notes about single family. And yeah, on the mom and pop landlord reference thing, I think the challenge is I don't disagree necessarily. I would tell you that when you get to probably 40 or 50 units, that's probably not a thing anymore. Unless you're doing that full time and that's all you're doing, it's a lot extra. So Bajan says, I want financial freedom, so more doesn't mean better. That's very true. More doesn't necessarily mean better. I know some people, some of my deals, I could get my portfolio down to Dion size and make enough money to choke a donkey. But for longevity, I know that if one of my kids wants to go to college, I'm not paying for it. But if one of my kids wants to go to college, they have a house that they can live in and they don't have any expense for rentals. Like I give them the house to do something like that because they'll have that option. Dion.
So there's actually something whenever we talk numbers. Bajan, you're kind of in this community that it's the REI Avengers. We have Michael Zuber from One Rental at a Time. We have Millennial Mike, Beth Traverso, Matt, the mortgage guy. Like there's these people that are sharing this information, the Lumberjack Landlord. I'm Dion Talk Financial Freedom here on YouTube. And you have all these different strategies. A couple of these guys, like Matt and Zuber, the numbers are so big, we don't share them because it's disheartening. If you heard that you can make a couple $1 million a year, how do you get started? Like how do you break off a piece of that elephant to just take a bite, right? So there's people like me, my portfolio is small enough. So here's to give you just an example of why we don't talk about the numbers on some of the portfolios. I have 7 properties with 16 doors. Doing my taxes right now. In 2022, I had $203,000 in profit, right? 203 something, right? So profit after principal, interest, taxes, insurance, after all expenses, everything. This is the money that I made. I paid 0 in taxes. That's why real estate's awesome on that income. Matt has 137 units. Uh-huh. That's why we don't talk the numbers. So yes, you can achieve financial freedom with, Zuber says to get to 4. I agree. Once you get to 4, you start having all kinds of weird options. The income snowball starts to kick in, sure. and at that point, you can start choosing which way you want to go. So it's not a decision you have to start with. It can happen later. And then I'm kind of proof that with just 7 properties, if you can't live off $203,000 a year, net after everything, yeah. Right? And that's after, like, I'm living for free too. So there's there's that there too. That you have more issues than investing, if that's a problem.
True story. Or you have 3 kids, 5 and under. Anywho, Jay Aguilar, thanks Matt and Dion for all your wisdomness. You're very welcome. Ninja Vanis, that was a great tip. Multifamily 4 and under. Bajan, you can look at the 4-3-2-1 strategy on my channel. That will help you. That would definitely be a help to you. James Walsh, great tenant asked for a month to month due to trying for a child, and the house is small. Do you like month to month? If so, do you increase rent? A winter turnover in PA would be awful, so I lean towards yearly. So knowing the types of winters that you have in PA, we have them even worse here in the Northeast. It's the worst. November, December, again, October, November, December, January, February, March, those months suck for renting. They're horrible. You're going to have typically only 2 classes of tenant, and likely they're not the class of tenant that you want, or you want them, but on a limited basis. So I don't like having rentals come available then. So for us, it's pretty much April to September. And we try and start marketing it in March. So we have somebody moving in for April 1st or May 1st. That's what I would say. So yeah, so month to month, and that's why it's hard. The one thing that I would possibly do is I might give them like a 3-month lease. I might give them a 3-month lease, but let them know that that if you hit October 1, it's got to be a 6-month lease. Dion.
So the answers that we're giving here, and
Yes.
the next one that's going to come up from Nick.
Yep.
You don't have to type anything, but somebody let me know if this information is worth a super chat for Matt. We're on Matt's channel, so this isn't even to benefit me, but the super chat will help grow the channel because it lets YouTube know that people like the content.
It's true.
So James, here's why I don't like month to month, but
Mhm.
why I have a possible solution. So yes, I'm in Washington. Our winters are fairly mild compared to the East Coast. So I've filled in December with the exact same amount of people applying, trying to get in there as I have in June, right? Because it doesn't just turn into a frozen block of death here, like in Siberia land where Matt lives. Okay, so yeah, you might want to avoid the winter thing. So you might go with a slightly increased rent to justify that you're going to have that hard time in the winter. Sometimes when you're qualifying for the next loan, if you don't have more than 10 loans in your name and you're not going for DSCR, asset-based, commercial, or all those other types of lending, and you're going for the conventional loans in your own name or yours and your spouse's name, lenders will want to see two things. First, that 75% of rents coming in covers principal, interest, taxes, and insurance on all of your properties. Second, in order to count the rents on the property that you're looking to buy your next purchase, the majority of your leases has to have more than 3 months remaining. So month to month doesn't satisfy that. So what I've done in the case where I've got a guy right now whose job says he might have to move away, and we were renewing the lease. I said, no problem. I want a 12-month lease. It's going to cost you $50 to break the lease. So normally there's a lease termination fee of pretty close to a month's rent, $2,000, $2,200, something like that. So if you want to break the lease in the middle, you got to pay this extra month. Or if I know the person's moving, I'll put a really ridiculously low amount of money that they can pay to break the lease so that my lender sees I have a 12-month lease in place, because they want more than 3 months, because they're going to sell, you're going to buy the next property, and within 3 months, because it's usually within 3 days, they sell that note to someone else to manage. So they don't care about what happens after 3 months, but they want that 3 months in place. So you're more lendable with a longer lease. If you have the winter thing, then I think you have a good point of maybe charging more rent and saying, we'll do a 12-month lease, because I want it to end. I want my lender to see. You can explain to the town, I want my lender to see I have a long lease. But for you to break it, it's going to be $50. But since you're probably going to break it in the winter, we need to raise the rent a little. And if they'll agree to that, then sure, I'm okay with it. So it's a longer lease, easier to break with your increase because you're expecting that turnover in the winter.
Yes. I have to go in 5 minutes because I had just something pop up on my life calendar. But let's get through this quickly. So Nick Wood, looking to get started with my first multifamily. What lenders do you recommend using in Washington State? I saw that there were a couple of recommended there. Umpqua Bank. Thanks, Todd, for making the suggestion. The rule, search and shop. Search and shop as many banks as you possibly can. Be honest. Use Dion's strategy. Tell them that you're going to take whatever number they give you, and then you're going to talk to somebody else about it is some of the best advice that you'll get. Chris Culp, struggling with the month to month, can leave any time, but also makes it easier to punt them. Sort of. I haven't seen that it makes it any easier to punt them because you can still give them 30 days notice, but you can do that in a lease as well if they're not paying. And that's usually what the issue is. Angel R, have you guys rented to relocating tenants wanting to do a virtual tour? I have. I've done it because we are in a military area. 3 times it went very well. 1 time it went horribly. They moved in. They were like, we really hate the neighborhood. And I was like, I don't know what, I mean, I was like, why? They're just like, we just hate the neighborhood. Okay. So I said, that's fine. If you want to break your lease, we'll charge your break lease fee and we'll pay, you have to pay us to remarket it, and we'll do that. And you're on the hook until somebody else rents it. And so they hated it that much that they left. And the funny thing is the new people that moved in absolutely love it. Noel Jerez, good afternoon, guys. I need to replace an exterior door for one of my units. What is the average cost for labor? I already purchased the door. It can range, but you're usually looking at anywhere from $400 to $1,000 to replace an exterior door, depending on how complex it is.
If they have to do the entire frame around the door, yeah, absolutely. If it's the door itself, you'd be $200 or less.
Yeah, agreed.
If it's in the frame, right?
Yeah, usually you're going to be, like I said, usually you're going to be between $400 and $1,000. If you haven't left a thumbs up, please do so, because Dion and I killed it today. We dropped some major knowledge today and helped out a ton of people, which is what we love to do. Laser Focus, just saw your let's go. I'm sorry, I do have to go. I actually have to go do my real job. This was a long lunch break for me, but fun nonetheless. So Dion, tell everybody where they can find you, my friend.
Playing Diablo 4 all weekend.
Not
Right here
tomorrow.
on YouTube. Dion, not tomorrow. Yeah, not posted tomorrow. Dion Talk Financial Freedom right here on YouTube. My live streams are Tuesday afternoons, 4 p.m. Pacific.
Awesome. And don't forget the live streams Tuesdays. Is that what you just said? Did I miss that?
And Todd, if you come, I will answer that question as one of the opening ones. I'll take a screenshot for Tuesday.
Banks directly versus brokers. Both. Because a broker represents probably 10 to 15 banks he's familiar with. And that's good because you want variety. And the bank, it's important to start that relationship and say, I would love to do business with you. I just can't have it cost me a big premium to start this off with you guys. So that's something that's pretty important. All-nighter hider. Thanks, my man, always for attending. Hoping all is going well in Arkansas as you work on that building project. Nick Wood, you're very welcome. Appreciate all the education. Happy to help. Live stream Sunday for me, 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. And then we've also got Dion's again at 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesdays. But yeah, always happy to answer your guys' questions. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. We have Lumberjack live stream on Sunday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. And then we have at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time, we will have boot camp for the course. So I hope you guys all have a fantastic week. Thanks so much for coming and hanging out. And please make sure, Brian Beck, thanks so much for the super chat. I appreciate that. All the super chats, Ninja Vanish, all you guys, I appreciate you. Suli, please let us know. Give us an update on Sunday after you've figured out what you might want to do. I'd love to hear what you decided. So Dion, thanks again, my man. I appreciate you. And guys, go back to work.
Nap time.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. Right. See you guys.